She danced for a billionaire, gave him what no one ever had, then came back with a secret. Jasmine never wanted to be there, but when your little brother's life depends on money you don't have, you make choices you swore you never would, even if it means dancing behind closed doors, for men with money and no names. That night she met him and gave him something no one else had ever touched, her first time. Then she vanished. 5 years later, she came back, with a secret that would change everything. Welcome to Stories That See You, where every story finds its voice. If you enjoy this kind of deep, emotional storytelling, please don't forget to rate this story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps me grow and tells me which stories speak to you the most. Thank you. She stood in the dimly lit room that reeked of cheap perfume, tears filling her eyes as she stared at the black garter trembling in her hands. She'd only seen this stuff in movies and had no clue how to even put the damn thing on. When the door suddenly slammed open and some big bearded guy barged in, her instincts kicked in and she quickly shoved the thing behind her back. Every nerve in her body was screaming danger. Do people just walk into dressing rooms like this? She thought, her fear spiking even higher. The guy took his sweet time checking her out from head to toe, a full 5 seconds of pure sleaze. Then this creepy-ass smile spread across his face. You must be the new girl, Lucy's girl, right? She nodded nervously. The guy nodded back, looking pleased. Perfect. You'll work out just fine. Nice body. What's your name, sweetheart? Her voice came out barely, above a whisper. Jasmine. Great. We won't need to change that. Jasmine works perfect for this business. That same nasty smile crept back onto his face. The guy had his bright yellow shirt unbuttoned halfway down his gut, hands shoved in his pockets like he owned the place. Everything about him screamed that he was in this business way, beyond just running some club. Jasmine, I'm Vincent. I run this place. Lucy told me you need cash. One of my VIP room girls called in sick tonight. I could put you there instead. We've got some important clients coming in. VIP pays double what you'd make out there. What do you say? I was told I'd just be dancing on stage. Vincent let out a harsh laugh, the kind that comes from the back of your throat when you think someone's being naive. On stage? Right. You'll dance, sure, but VIP dancing is more, intimate. Maybe a little hands-on. His eyes drifted down to her neck, then her legs. Keep the guy happy and he'll want you back. Then maybe you walk out with $300 in one night. Jasmine hesitated, her fingers curling into her palms. I'm not ready for that. Ready? Vincent stepped closer, his voice dropping low. Sweetheart, life doesn't ask if you're ready, especially when you need $500,000. Jasmine's throat went tight. She swallowed hard. Even breathing felt impossible. Sweat broke out along her hairline. She lifted her chin, her hands gripping the garter so tight her knuckles went white. I can't. But the word came out weaker than she meant it to. Vincent turned around. Before walking out, he called back, VIP room. 10 minutes. Make your choice before I get back. Jasmine angrily swiped at the tear rolling down her cheek. She needed this money. 500 grand in 2 weeks for her brother's surgery. She'd swallow her pride and do whatever it took. Simple as that. She looked at the garter in her hand, then at the lacy lingerie draped over the chair. If Lucy can do this, hell, maybe I can too, right? The door burst open again, and some young woman breezed in, cracking up on her phone. She spotted Jasmine, but didn't break stride. Girl, you will not believe who I just had in VIP. She was yanking off her long blonde wig while talking. $1,000 in tips, I shit you not. Yeah, drinks are totally on me tonight. Love ya, catch you in an hour. She hung up and looked at Jasmine, who was still clutching the garter like she had no clue what to do with it. Honey? First night? Jasmine nodded. Yeah, figured. You look kind of freaked out. Jasmine rolled her eyes. Kinda. I'm scared shitless. I don't even know how to put this damn thing on. Okay, no panic, the dark-haired woman said, pulling her hair down from its updo. I'm Roxy. Give me 10 minutes and I'll have you looking like the hottest chick in this place, all right? Don't stress. Just think of it as getting on stage, having some fun, dancing around. Roxy squeezed her shoulder with a warm smile. Come on, slip into that lacy little number behind the curtain. I'll handle the rest. When Jasmine put on the black lace and caught herself in the mirror, she barely recognized what she saw. She'd never worn anything like this before. If someone had told her a month ago she'd be doing this, she would have laughed in their face. But life had a way of backing you into corners you never saw coming. Roxy yanked the curtain aside without warning. Holy shit, babe, look at you. Those legs, that hair, you're gonna kill it. Come here, let me help you with that garter. Jasmine stared at herself in the mirror as Roxy appeared next to her with bright red lipstick. Damn, you're gorgeous, Jasmine. You could just throw this on and be set. While Roxy dabbed the lipstick on her lips, Jasmine's nerves kicked in again. Roxy, the VIP room. What exactly goes down in there? Roxy grinned. Vincent's throwing you straight into VIP? After finishing with the lipstick, she turned Jasmine's face toward the mirror. Babe, you look amazing. Tonight's gonna go smooth, don't worry. Look, the VIP room. It's not as scary as you're thinking. Depends on what kind of guy you get, obviously, but you're the one calling the shots. You decide how close things get. Keep him happy, and he'll tip you good. I've been working this club for a year now, and VIP's been treating me pretty damn well. Jasmine tried to smile. Don't get me wrong, I'm here out of necessity, just for a little while, until I can do this job. Roxy burst out laughing. Okay, honey, I get it. None of us are doing this for fun either. She gave her shoulder a friendly pat. Don't stress. You got this. Just then, Vincent cracked the door open. Ladies, move it. Get to the stage. 15 minutes of stage dancing. Roxy, what the hell? You haven't put your red wig on yet? You need to be on stage in 1 minute. Jasmine, have you made up your mind? Spit it out. I don't have time. Yes, Jasmine yelled out, her voice cracking with nerves. Yes, I'll do the VIP room. She was stumbling toward the door in heels and this outfit that made her feel like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. Walking out into the smoky hallway behind Vincent, her heart was hammering so hard she thought it might burst. What the hell was she doing? What if someone in the audience recognized her? Maybe she should have grabbed a wig. Before she could finish the thought, Jasmine was under the lights. Smoke curled at her feet. The bass rattled her ribs. 3 other girls flanked her, confident, poised, while she clung to the rhythm of her heels on the floor. The velvet curtains parted. Red and purple spotlights poured down, blinding and hot. The crowd was a blur of shadows, crystal glasses catching the light, eyes locked on the stage. She stepped onto the center platform of Club Lux's infamous Red Room. Silver confetti sparkled across the floor. Her lingerie clung too tightly, her breath caught. The other dancers glided into their routines, one in a silver bustier, another with lips painted blood red. They looked like they belonged. Jasmine didn't. But the music had started. No turning back. A slow, deep jazz rhythm rose up like a heartbeat. Jasmine's knees went weak. Roxy whispered behind her, "Now, just breathe. And remember, nobody's forcing you. But if you close your eyes and let the rhythm take over, you might surprise yourself." Jasmine took a step. The click of her heels on the floor sparked something inside her, syncing with the music. Her hair slipped off her shoulder as her breath caught in her chest. She closed her eyes. For just a second, she forgot everything. Her brother's illness, the debt, Vincent's words. She was just on stage. Her chest rising and falling slowly, she took another step, rolled her shoulder, let her hips find the beat. Eyes in the audience locked onto her. By the time she reached the center of the platform, the shaking had mostly stopped. Paul Dempsey was trying to read work reports on his phone, but the noise inside the Mercedes SUV made it useless. The 5 groomsmen, plus 1 groom-to-be, were still in full party mode, taking their bachelor night to a nightclub. Andy was pouring whiskey into glasses. "Paul, man, put the phone down. Where's your glass? We're almost there. Tonight's gonna be wild." Paul sighed, pocketing his phone and removing his glasses. "Andy, you're getting married in 2 days. We all know, Pam, the Red Room's a bad idea." "Stop being a buzzkill," Andy grinned. "This is a bachelor party, and tonight we're all—" The rest shouted in unison, "Pushing the limits." Paul shook his head. "If you guys weren't my childhood friends, nothing could drag me to a place like that." George blew cigar smoke in Paul's direction. "Stop being such a stick in the mud, Paul. Just because you're about to take over your company at 33 doesn't mean you have to act like some uptight old man. You were way more fun to hang with back in our 20s. Loosen up, man. Let's go back to the crazy days for one night. Tonight, the VIP room's on me. I'm hooking you up." Paul rolled his eyes. "No VIP room for me, George. You can use my share too." When the SUV pulled up in front of the Red Room nightclub, the security at the door greeted their guests with serious attention and care. Tonight, the Red Room had some heavy hitters, the city's most eligible and loaded bachelors. The 6 well-dressed men who walked in, sporting expensive watches and cologne that cost more than minimum wage, drew every eye in the place as they settled into their reserved private booth. As champagne and whiskey kept flowing to their table throughout the night, the group's party energy was hitting full throttle. George raised his glass and shouted, "VIP rooms are ready, boys. Already paid for. My treat for tonight, of course." Everyone went wild cheering for George. "You're the man. Let's have some fun." Paul smirked and sipped his champagne. "Don't look so smug, Paul," Andy said after downing his shot, grabbing one of the gold-embossed tokens from the table. "You're going first." Everyone stood up, grabbing their own tokens. George checked the number on his. "I got number 7, my lucky number. All right, boys, we're in those rooms for half an hour. Make it count." As George and Andy practically dragged Paul toward the VIP section, Paul realized this kind of fun just didn't do it for him anymore like it used to. When he walked into room number 3, he had no clue what his night was about to become. When Jasmine finished her stage performance and caught her breath backstage, her heart was pounding out of her chest. With all those eyes watching her like that, she'd tried thinking about other things to forget her embarrassment, and after a while just tried copying whatever the other girls were doing. Thank God the 15-minute dance was over. Vincent suddenly appeared next to her. "Hey, Jasmine, not bad at all. We're gonna get along just fine, beautiful. No time to waste. You're heading to the VIP room now. Let's move." Jasmine hurried to keep up with Vincent's quick pace. This part, the VIP room, she had zero idea how to handle. She'd only had 2 boyfriends in her life, and she'd never even danced in front of them. What if this guy turned out to be some pervert? What if he tried to force her to do something she didn't want to? Jasmine's breath caught. When they got upstairs, Jasmine was shocked to find herself on a floor that was designed way beyond what she expected, almost futuristic, you could say. Vincent laughed. "Not what you were expecting, right? This is the premium section, baby. You need chip tokens to get in, payments all up front. And inside, you get cash tips." He stopped in front of door number 3. "You can't leave for 30 minutes. He pulled out his gold-embossed token. "Either I can open the door, or the person inside can." Jasmine swallowed hard, her eyes going wide. What if someone in there does something bad to me? Is this safe?" Vincent tilted his head and looked at Jasmine like, "Come on, seriously. Only known and special people get into these rooms, little lady. We don't let random creeps in here. This is the Red Room. You don't seem to get where you're working. Come on, make your 30 minutes count. Get that money." When he scanned the gold-embossed token on the panel by the door, it opened with a click. Vincent politely gestured toward the inside with his hand. A deep red glow spilled from the room, swallowing the hallway behind her. Jasmine stepped in. The air was thick, humid, charged. Everything was crimson. Walls, ceiling, even the furniture bathed in sultry red tones. White fur rugs broke the monotony, soft beneath her heels. At the center stood a glossy black platform, and rising from it, a silver pole, lit like a spotlight's altar. Paul Dempsey was sprawled out on the red leather couch, champagne glass in one hand, phone in the other, focused on the screen. His dark navy tuxedo had sharp lines, cufflinks gleaming. His glasses sat on his face, hair swept back in perfectly casual dishevelment. He looked like nothing in the world mattered to him, until Jasmine walked in. When her shadow fell across the room, Paul looked up. He slowly lowered his glasses down his nose, his eyes locked onto her. For a moment, he couldn't figure out what he was seeing. The woman who'd just entered, with that outfit, those long, wavy, dark curls, her slender frame, and the innocence in her face. What first caught Paul's attention was this weird contradiction. The music playing in the room was Earn It by The Weeknd. When it mixed with the room's colors and atmosphere, it gave the whole place an erotic vibe. Jasmine kept her posture steady and started walking toward Paul, moving to the rhythm of the music. As she confidently stepped one leg in front of the other, Paul slowly pulled his glasses off his face. He slipped his phone into his pocket. While Jasmine stepped up onto the platform in sync with the beat, Paul swallowed hard and quickly took a sip of his champagne. What he'd expected to see in this room was definitely not this girl. As Jasmine moved around the dance pole, she closed her eyes. Think you're at home, Jasmine, just dancing in your room. As she swayed her hips to the music's sharp, pounding rhythm, she felt her cheeks burning hot. Being in the VIP room wasn't a good idea. She had zero clue what she was supposed to do here for 30 minutes. Paul's body leaned forward. He'd noticed that the girl was trying not to look at him and kept her eyes shut. Jasmine wasn't sure what move she was supposed to make. Moving with the rhythm, she whipped her hair to the side, turned her back to the pole and to Paul. Then slowly lowered her hips toward the floor and lifted them back up. A smile formed at the corner of Paul's lips. The girl was obviously a beginner, but combined with that innocent beauty, he could swear this was the sweetest and most erotic dance he'd ever seen. When the girl turned toward him, Paul tried to catch her eyes and made a "come here" gesture with his finger. Jasmine saw it and turned away in horror, pretending not to notice. She kept moving around the pole, trying to figure out what to do. What could he have meant by "come here"? A lap dance? Oh no, absolutely not. "Hey!" Paul called out. How long could she keep avoiding this situation? As she slowly turned her head toward Paul nervously, she realized there was nowhere to escape for the next 30 minutes. Paul had raised his eyebrows and was looking at Jasmine with an interesting smile on his face. He gestured with his hand again and mouthed the words, "Come here." Jasmine took a breath and tried to step down from the platform in rhythm with the music, but her heel caught the edge. She tumbled forward, landing hard, right into Paul's lap. Paul's hands flew to catch her, one at her waist, the other steadying her arm. For a second, Jasmine was sprawled between his legs, faces inches apart, eyes wide. He helped her up gently. "You okay? Not hurt, are you?" Jasmine nodded, breathless and mortified, brushing her hair from her face. Paul couldn't hold back the grin. "That was, hands down, the most elegant collapse I've ever witnessed. Borderline ballet, with bonus contact." Jasmine gave him a look, then laughed, short, nervous, but real. She bit her lip, still flustered. The music blared around them too loud now. Paul held up one finger, stepped over to a panel by the couch and turned it down. As the room fell suddenly quiet, Jasmine felt the silence press in. Her body still pulsed with adrenaline, or something else entirely. Now, in the silence, Paul turned toward her, scratching his forehead with a smirk tugging at his lips. "Hi there," he said, relaxed. Jasmine hesitated. There was something about his tone, casual, calm, that made her shoulders loosen a little. "Hi," she echoed, giving him a shy half-smile. I can keep dancing if you'd like. You paid for 30 minutes and we're barely 10 in." Paul chuckled, waving his hand. "Let me guess, first night on the job?" Jasmine dropped her head with a groan. "Wow, That obvious, huh? He grinned, only in the most charming way. Then, patting the spot beside him, he added, "Come sit with me, unless you'd rather practice your twirls a bit more." Jasmine blinked. "Wait, you just want to talk? I mean, they're paying me to dance for you." Paul leaned back. "Why not? I paid for the room. That means I call the shots, right?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You mean—" He raised a hand, laughing. "Relax. I meant talk." I swear Jasmine gave him a wary smile, then slowly sat beside him. They looked at each other, unsure, curious, and after a beat of silence, both burst into quiet laughter. Paul reached for his champagne glass. "Want some?" he asked. "Might help you relax a bit." Jasmine shook her head. "Thanks, but I don't drink. Well, hardly ever." "Of course," Paul said, nodding. He poured some into another glass anyway, "just in case you change your mind." He set the glass next to her. "I'm Paul, by the way." "Jasmine," she said, her voice still unsure. "That's actually my real name." Paul raised his eyebrows slightly. "Your real name? So there are girls here who use fake ones?" Jasmine gave a small, embarrassed shrug. "I think so," she said, then added with a slight grin, "Too late to be Roxy now, I guess, and you don't really seem like you belong here," Paul said with a slight smile. Those words landed harder than he'd intended. Jasmine's eyes lowered, glassy. Paul leaned forward a little, softer now. "I didn't mean that in a bad way. I just meant you're different. In a good way. I noticed how your hands were shaking while you were dancing, and your eyes, scared but determined at the same time. You don't want to do this job, but you feel like you have to." Jasmine stared at Paul in amazement. How could this guy read her so well? "You don't seem like you belong here either," she murmured. "I mean, you're not like the others." Paul laughed. "You're right. My friends actually dragged me here. Bachelor party." "Yours?" "No, Andy's. I don't really come to places like this." Paul looked around the room. "Usually, I'd be in online business meetings or at my computer at this hour." Jasmine felt relaxed for the first time. "What do you do for work?" "Logistics. How about you? Besides tonight, did you work anywhere else?" Jasmine hesitated. Should she tell the truth? "I'm a college student. Industrial engineering, senior year." Paul's eyes lit up. "Wow, industrial engineering, tough major. Are you on scholarship?" "Yes," Jasmine said proudly. "Full scholarship." "Then you're definitely smart." Paul looked at her, more serious now. "So what's a smart, talented girl like you doing here?" Jasmine's throat tightened. Her eyes filled again. "I didn't really have a choice," she said quietly. She knew she shouldn't be saying this, not here, not to a client. "Mind if I ask why?" Paul's voice was calm. "Just us here, and it stays between us." Jasmine took a breath. "I needed money." Paul frowned slightly. "You're a college student on a full scholarship. Couldn't you just pick up another job?" "I have one," she said. "I work at a cafe, but it's not enough." She hesitated, then added almost in a whisper, "My brother's sick. He needs surgery. Insurance won't cover it." She tried to smile, blinking fast. This just seemed like the fastest way to get the money. Paul's expression changed. He set his champagne glass on the table and leaned closer to Jasmine. "What's wrong with your brother?" "Cancer," Jasmine said. "Bone cancer. He needs surgery, and there are medications he has to take." "How much does it cost?" Paul asked. Jasmine hesitated. "I shouldn't be talking about this. You didn't come here to hear my problems. We can talk about something else. Or if you want me to dance. I might not be very good at it, but I'll do my best." "Stop, stop," Paul said. "I don't want you to dance, okay? Not because you're bad at it. Don't get me wrong." They both laughed. "I hope I don't look like the kind of guy who would make a girl dance for his entertainment when she's here with shaking hands, forced to do this just trying to save her brother. How much do you need? Tell me." Jasmine hung her head. $500,000. $500,000. That's what they said? That's a huge amount. You can't make that kind of money dancing here, Jasmine. Jasmine couldn't hold back her tears. I know. It seems impossible. But he's all I've got. After our parents died, I raised him. He was 12. Now he's 17, and he's running out of time. Paul's heart clenched. What a heavy burden this girl was carrying on her shoulders. Didn't you have any other options? Loans? Banks? I tried everything, Jasmine said, tears pooling at the corners of her eyes. I'm just a student. No credit, no income, nothing they care about. We survive off my part-time job and whatever my aunt can send. Jasmine brushed a tear from her cheek, trying to steady her voice. Lucy, my friend works here. She told me this was the only place I could make real money. Paul stayed quiet for a long time. Then he slowly placed his hand on Jasmine's shoulder. Jasmine, look at me. The girl looked up through her tears. Paul stood up and extended his hand to her. What are you doing? Jasmine asked. I'm getting you out of here, Paul said with determination. This place isn't for you. Jasmine hesitated. But I need to work here. I don't have money. No other choice. Jasmine, Paul's voice was gentle but firm. Trust me. I need to get you out of here. You shouldn't be in a place like this. Where are you taking me? Somewhere comfortable where we can sit and talk. Maybe we can figure out a solution. Jasmine looked skeptical. You don't even know me. Why are you helping? Paul smiled. Sometimes you just have to do the right thing. And you're a good person. I can feel it. Paul took off his jacket and draped it over Jasmine's shoulders. Put this on. We're leaving. Paul quickly took Jasmine's hand. Trust me, Jasmine. Please. Jasmine looked into Paul's eyes, her heart racing. Something inside her told her this man could be trusted. Okay, she whispered with wide eyes. As they left the club, Paul held Jasmine's hand firmly and walked confidently past Vincent and the other security guards. When one of his friends tried to catch him, Paul gestured, "We'll talk later," with his hand, and quickly steered Jasmine toward the exit. Vincent's voice echoed behind them. "Hey, Jasmine, get back here! You think you can just walk out?" Paul picked up the pace. As Jasmine held his hand and tried to keep up with his quick steps, her mind was spinning. She was holding hands with a man she'd only known for 30 minutes, wearing his jacket, running after him in her underwear. Where was this all leading? The cold night air hit Jasmine like a wave of freedom. After the perfume and pressure inside the club, it felt like she could finally breathe. Paul pulled out his phone. "Max, front of the club. 5 minutes." She looked at him, still unsure. Then a black limousine rolled to the curb, headlights glowing like a movie scene. Jasmine blinked. Was this guy serious? The drive was quiet. When they reached the Ritz, Paul didn't even pause at the lobby, just walked straight to the elevator with a key card swipe. Inside the suite, Jasmine felt swallowed by space, cool-toned furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a couch that looked like it could seat 10. "Make yourself comfortable," Paul said. "Water? Tea? Coffee?" "Water," she said softly, still on edge. Paul handed her a glass, then casually made a call. "Sam? Yeah, I need $500,000. Cash. Ritz-Carlton. 1 hour." He hung up like it was nothing. Jasmine just stared. Who was this man? Jasmine stared at him, stunned. "Wait, are you serious? You're really having $500,000 brought here? I mean, why? You don't even know me. This is insane." Paul leaned back on the couch, calm as ever. "I'm serious. The money will be here in less than an hour." "But why?" Her voice cracked. "This makes no sense. I could have lied to you. You don't know me." Paul smiled softly. "Maybe it is crazy, but you're not just anyone, Jasmine. You didn't ask me for anything, and still, you were willing to give up everything. I just want to make sure you never have to go back to that place." Her eyes filled again, this time with disbelief. "This doesn't feel real. Stuff like this only happens in fairy tales or, I don't know, some viral TikTok story. Paul chuckled. Life's better when it surprises you, and I trust my instincts, especially with people like you. She let out a breathy laugh, wiping her tears. Pretty sure I just ruined your bachelor party. Paul gave a crooked grin. Honestly, you might have saved it. He looked at her a moment. You hungry? Jasmine blinked, caught off guard. Wait, what? Room service, Paul said, standing. I say burgers, fries, beer, and this skyline. What do you think? Room service rolled in 20 minutes later. Crispy fries, messy burgers, 2 cold bottles of beer. The city glittered behind the floor-to-ceiling windows like a postcard. Jasmine watched him open the bottle for her. This wasn't how rich men behaved, not in the stories she knew. And yet, here he was, barefoot, sleeves rolled up, handing her a burger like they were just 2 old friends having dinner. Paul pulled out a chair for her. Jasmine sat down, still wrapped in his jacket, her garters and stilettos peeking out underneath. She looked at the cart in front of them and let out a surprised laugh. In a place like this, I was expecting champagne and caviar. Paul grinned as he sat across from her. Would that have impressed you? Not a chance, Jasmine said, shaking her head. This is perfect. Fries and a burger? You're speaking my language? Paul rolled up his sleeves and took a bite of his burger, relaxed and completely at ease. Jasmine watched him for a moment. There was something almost unreal about the way he carried himself, elegant and powerful, yet somehow boyish. And now this, eating junk food barefoot in a penthouse. She couldn't help but smile. Over dinner, the conversation shifted naturally, from funny childhood memories to Jasmine's hopes for her future, to Paul's upcoming business deal in Singapore. I've never even left the country, Jasmine admitted. Traveling the world, starting over somewhere, that sounds like a dream. Paul chuckled. You're going to be a force, Jasmine. You're only 23. You've got time to build your own world, however you want it. He leaned back slightly, looking into his glass before continuing. I'm 33. And yeah, some would say I got lucky. My grandfather built the company. My father grew it. I had the best schools, the roadmap already drawn. But now, it's finally my turn to make the calls. My own choices, my own risks. Honestly, it feels like life is just starting. He glanced at her. You don't have my resources, but you do have something most people never find. A blank page. That kind of freedom's, it's rare. And it's powerful. Jasmine turned to the window, watching the glow of the skyline. Funny, she said quietly. Everyone wants what they don't have. I thought you had everything. And now you're telling me you've only just started feeling free. Paul raised his beer bottle. To freedom, then. Jasmine clinked bottles with him and took a long sip of her beer. She wasn't sure if it was the alcohol or something else, but she could feel herself slowly relaxing around this man. As she leaned forward to take off her heels, something slipped out of Paul's jacket pocket, a pair of glasses. She picked them up. Do you wear glasses? Sometimes, Paul replied. For reading, mostly. Nearsightedness runs in the family. I've worn them since I was a kid. I don't love them, but I need them. Jasmine tried them on playfully. Paul grinned. They look good on you, he said. When I came into the dance room earlier, you were looking at your phone with these on, right? Paul nodded. Yeah, I was checking on a business deal, Singapore. I'm flying out in 3 days. I'll be there for about a month. Jasmine smiled. You're different, Paul. I've never met anyone like you before. She handed the glasses back to him. I think these glasses really suit you. Paul held her gaze for a moment, his voice warm. Thank you. I think my jacket looks really good on you too. We won't be able to find anything else for you to wear at this hour, but if you want, stay here tonight. In the morning, I can pick out something for you from the hotel boutique. How does that sound? Jasmine set her beer down on the table. There was a hint of nervousness in her eyes. I don't think it's a good idea for you to leave dressed like that, especially at this hour. Paul said, raising his eyebrows. "And my driver, Max. He's out of town picking up my father. I can't send you with him either." He scratched his forehead, then glanced at her with a warm, slightly mischievous smile. "You do realize you look extremely provocative right now. I'm officially declaring you my guest tonight. Deal?" Jasmine's cheeks flushed a deep red. Her eyes dropped to the garter peeking out beneath Paul's jacket. "Well, this is the first time I've ever worn something like this. You're right. Going out dressed like this would be a really bad idea." "Okay," she said softly, still nervous. "I'll sleep on the couch. I mean, it's huge anyway." Paul shook his head. "Let a beautiful, smart woman sleep on the couch? That doesn't sound very gentlemanly of me," he said with a teasing squint. "I'll take the couch." Half an hour later, a knock came at the door. Paul opened it to find a man standing there with a large black bag in hand. "Mr. Dempsey, your order?" Paul nodded his thanks, took the bag, and closed the door behind him. Then he turned to Jasmine. $500,000, he said calmly, setting the bag on the table. Jasmine jumped to her feet, staring at it in disbelief. Her hands were trembling. Is this real?" she whispered. Paul opened the bag. Inside, stacks of neatly bundled $100 bills. "It's real, Jasmine. For your brother's surgery." Jasmine collapsed to her knees beside the bag, her fingertips brushing the money with shaking hands. Silent tears streamed down her cheeks. I can't pay this back. This is too much money." Paul knelt down beside her. "You don't need to pay it back." Jasmine looked up, eyes full of tears. "No, this isn't right. Nothing is free. I need to give you something in return for this." Paul took her hands. "Jasmine, no," she said firmly. "You saved my life. You saved my brother's life. How can I ever repay you for this?" The distance between them had vanished. Paul's hands were still holding hers. Jasmine could barely breathe. A storm of gratitude, fear, and something deeper swirled in her chest. "Jasmine," Paul said gently, "you don't owe me anything." She whispered, "Thank you." Paul smiled warmly. "Save your brother, finish your degree, and come work for my company. Maybe after you graduate we can work together. What do you think?" "Just chill out now," Paul said. "I've got some emails to deal with, time zone chaos. Turn on the TV, throw on a movie, whatever makes you comfortable. Tomorrow morning we'll get you some real clothes. Then you go take care of your brother. Sound good?" Jasmine nodded, overwhelmed with gratitude. As Paul stepped into the next room, she couldn't help thinking, any woman would be lucky to have a guy like this. Thoughtful, kind, a total gentleman, and ridiculously hot. No one had ever done something this big for her. Ever. Aside from the occasional cash her aunt sent, she and Hayden had been grinding through life alone, juggling school, work, and barely scraping by. Since Hayden's diagnosis, Jasmine had been doing everything herself. All of it. She sat on the edge of the bed, feeling small in that massive room. $500,000, just like that. Who does that? Jasmine slipped off Paul's jacket and let her head fall into the pillow. The beer, the emotions, it was all catching up. She curled into herself, mind spinning. A man she'd met just hours ago had just saved her brother's life. She had to find a way to repay him. But how? How the hell could she? Right before sleep claimed her, she pictured Paul's smile behind those glasses. Soft, kind, unexpected. She didn't realize she was smiling too. When Paul Dempsey walked into the room, his eyes immediately fell on Jasmine, curled up on the far edge of the massive bed. She was still wearing that black lace lingerie, garters and all. Yet her face, soft and innocent in sleep, told a completely different story. Her long dark hair spilled across the pillow in gentle waves. She might have been the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. Paul carefully draped a thin blanket over her, then let his fingers linger for a moment in her dark, glossy hair. Without a word, he sat down in the armchair across from the bed, still watching her. As his thoughts drifted, his eyes grew heavy. A moment later, his head tilted to the side, and he slipped into sleep too, right there in the chair. Jasmine's eyes flew open in the dark, her pulse racing. For a second, she couldn't tell if it had all been a dream. The room was still, quiet, almost too quiet. She sat up slowly, letting her eyes adjust to the shadows of the luxury suite. Across the room, in the faint city glow spilling through the windows, she saw him. Paul, asleep on the couch, head tilted, chest rising and falling gently. Something about that sight tugged at her. She slid out of bed, silent on her feet, and padded across the carpet. Crouching beside him, she took in his face. The strong line of his jaw, the slight scruff, the way one loose strand of hair had fallen across his forehead. His t-shirt hugged his chest just enough to remind her of how solid he'd felt when he'd caught her earlier that night. That same clean, masculine scent she'd noticed before, his cologne, now softened and warmed by his skin, drifted to her again. It made her dizzy. Without even realizing, she reached out and brushed that strand of hair back. Her fingers barely touched his skin. God, was this the most insanely gorgeous man she'd ever seen? And then his eyes opened, clear, sharp, and staring straight at her. She froze, startled by the sudden contact, their faces only inches apart. She whispered with a soft voice, I just woke up, saw you sleeping like this, and—" She bit her lip, flustered. "I didn't want you to wake up all stiff and sore. You're gonna wreck your neck sleeping like that. The bed's huge. I mean, just saying." Paul blinked the sleep from his eyes, slowly straightening his posture. His gaze locked onto Jasmine. She stood there quietly, then reached out her hand. "You can't be comfortable there," she said, barely above a whisper. "Come to bed." His brows lifted slightly. Not in arrogance, but in surprise. The kind that says, "Are you sure?" "You sure, Jasmine?" His voice was low, careful. "I don't want to cross a line." She shook her head, a soft no. "You sleeping like that would bother me more." Her hand stayed there, hovering, waiting. Paul hesitated for just a second, then reached out. His fingers grazed hers, warm, delicate, real. Jasmine didn't let go. With Paul behind her, she walked slowly back to the bed. Each step heavy with something unsaid. When she stopped at the edge, she turned to him, and now, for the first time, they were face to face, close, closer than before. Neither spoke. Paul's eyes lingered on her, not just her beauty, but her hesitation, that nervous flicker in her gaze, but also an invitation, not loud, not desperate, just there. He didn't push, but he understood. Jasmine lowered herself onto the bed, a small, shy smile curved at the corner of her lips. She shifted just enough to one side, leaving space beside her. Not asking, not explaining, just waiting. Paul lay down on his back in the spot Jasmine had made for him, still in his t-shirt and pants. Jasmine had pulled her knees up to her stomach, studying Paul's profile. A hint of a smile formed at the corner of Paul's lips. He slowly turned toward Jasmine too. Now they were both just lying in bed, looking at each other. Paul slowly, carefully reached out his hand and gently brushed the long hair that had fallen across Jasmine's lips away from her face with his fingers. The way Jasmine was looking at him had gotten to him. "Thank you," Jasmine said in a deep, husky voice. "Tonight might be the happiest night of my life." Paul nodded like he got it. Jasmine slowly reached her hand toward Paul's face. As she ran her fingers across his lips, she said, "The only thing I can give you is myself." Paul held the girl's fingers. "I'm not expecting anything back from you, Jasmine. I don't want you feeling like you have to do anything. That's not why I asked you to stay." Jasmine looked into his eyes. Her voice was low and trembling with something raw. "But I want to." Jasmine slowly moved her face closer to Paul's. Close enough to feel his breath, to taste the warmth between them. Her chest pressed softly against his, her hair falling like a veil across his cheek. Paul inhaled, as if her scent had just short-circuited his thoughts. Then, gently, she kissed the base of his neck, right where skin meets pulse. His reaction was instant. A quiet breath, a hand tightening at her waist. His mouth found her jawline, then her lips, answering her touch with one of his own. Hungry, but careful. That first kiss was slow, tasting, testing, two strangers caught between permission and desire. Then Paul's hand gripped her lower back, and in one fluid motion he rolled her beneath him. "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," he whispered, voice low and rough. "I can't resist you. I don't know if I'll be able to stop myself. But do you really want this?" Jasmine, breathless, nodded. "I do." As Paul's hands slid over her waist and up her ribcage, their mouths met again, hotter, deeper. Jasmine trembled beneath his touch. The second kiss burned, hungry, fiery, desperate. She moaned softly when his fingers found the delicate line of her garter, tracing the silk strap slowly, like he was memorizing it. Her breath hitched. She arched toward him, needing more. As he unfastened the clips, Paul's eyes locked on hers, intense, focused, dark with heat. "Let's get you out of these," he murmured against her skin, voice thick with want. Once they were both free of their clothes, Paul began exploring every inch of Jasmine's body, not just with his hands, but with his eyes, his lips, his breath, the weight of his presence. Her heartbeat was pounding so fiercely it felt like it might burst straight out of her chest. She was about to give herself to someone for the first time, and the thrill of it made her whole body hum, like every nerve ending had come alive, just for him. Her hands moved along Paul's back, clutching him tighter, her nails grazing skin, urging him closer, deeper now. Paul looked down into her eyes, seeing the tremble in the young woman beneath him, the kind of trembling that wasn't fear. It was surrender. "Jasmine," he whispered like a prayer, "you're shaking like a leaf. Is this the first time someone's ever touched you like this?" Jasmine nodded, breathless. Her eyes glistened with nervous desire. Paul's chest rose sharply, like he was trying to control himself. He lowered his head, resting it against her chest, breathing her in. Her scent, her warmth, overwhelmed him. Into her skin, he whispered, How did you stay this untouched, this soft?" He kissed her again, slowly, reverently, then leaned close to her ear, his breath warm on her skin. "I don't want this to feel like something you owe. If there's even a part of you that's unsure, we can stop. Right now. Even if it kills me." Jasmine turned her face to his, her lips brushing the shell of his ear as she breathed. "I don't want you to stop." Their lips crashed in a kiss full of heat and hunger. Paul didn't break eye contact as he closed the last sliver of space between their bodies, skin against skin, breath against breath. Jasmine let out a low moan as he entered her, her fingers digging into his back, her hips lifting to meet him. She moved under him with raw, aching need, every part of her pulling him closer, deeper. Paul leaned into her ear, his voice broken and thick. "Oh God, Jasmine, I'm never letting you go. Do you hear me? I'm never letting you go." She answered with a gasp, a whisper, a clutch of his shoulders, their bodies locked, lost in each other. That night, they didn't stop. Over and over their bodies tangled, desperate, burning, breathless, until they finally collapsed, spent and trembling in the dark. As dawn began to break, Paul laid there with her, gently running his fingers through her hair, watching her sleep in his arms. He couldn't let go of her now, not her skin, not her scent, not the way she had given herself to him for the first time, not those innocent burning eyes. How was he supposed to leave for Singapore now? Somehow, in just a few hours, Everything had changed. He knew what he had to do. As he pressed his face into the warmth of her neck, breathing her in, Paul finally drifted into sleep, already making plans for a future with Jasmine in it. When the morning sun hit Paul's face, he blinked and stretched out his arm, only to feel cold sheets beside him. Jasmine wasn't there. He sat up instantly, checked the bathroom, then the rest of the suite. Nothing. She was gone, and so was the bag of money. All he found was something small, glinting on the floor by the table, a thin gold bracelet. He picked it up slowly. Jasmine, the delicate script read, etched into the chain. Paul threw on his clothes and bolted down to the front desk. "Did you see a young woman leave? Long dark brown hair, might have been wearing a jacket, carrying a bag." One of the receptionists nodded. "Yes, sir, about an hour ago. She got into a cab parked right outside. She had on an oversized jacket and, sheer stockings with heels." Paul ran outside to the taxi stand. "A woman just left from here. Where did you take her?" After a few fast exchanges and radio calls, one of the drivers looked up. "Dropped her about 4 kilometers away on Main Street, sir." When Paul got back to his room, he didn't waste a second. The moment he walked out of the hotel, he was heading straight to the Red Room. Vincent could only shrug. "I don't know her last name. She doesn't work here anymore. Jasmine was a friend of Lucy's. Started yesterday. Last I saw her was when she left with you." Paul felt himself unraveling. Jasmine. All he had was a first name. He was furious with himself. No last name, no phone number, nothing. He spent the whole day calling every university in the city, asking if they had a senior industrial engineering student named Jasmine. No luck. He tried hospitals, inquiring about a 17-year-old bone cancer patient whose sister was named Jasmine. Nothing. Everywhere he turned. Dead ends. No one had any record. No one had heard the name. Jasmine. Like a dream, she had stepped into his life one night and disappeared the next. Paul walked through the main entrance of the Texlo building, one of the companies under the Dempsey Group umbrella, with quick, energetic steps, thinking about what he'd say at the morning meeting waiting for him. While he'd been sitting in the CEO chair of Dempsey Group for 5 years, he'd brought their Singapore ventures and most recently Veritas operations, one of the country's strongest firms, under the company umbrella. The merger of Veritas and Texlo would take Dempsey Group much higher. Already, Texlo's stock had shot up pretty high with this merger. This meeting between Veritas's CEO and 10 key Veritas employees with Texlo employees was like the company's wedding ceremony. Veritas CEO Albert Williams met Paul, standing at his office door. "Paul, good morning. Great to see you here." Paul shook Albert's hand firmly. "Did the Veritas employees arrive?" "They did, and they're excited," Albert said with a smile. "A little nervous too. You know how company mergers go. Everyone's worried about losing their job." Paul nodded. "Yeah, we'll see. Who stays at Veritas, who doesn't? Today's going to matter, both for us and for them." "They still don't know Texlo's backed by Dempsey Group," Albert said with a knowing smile. "Having you in that room will definitely shake things up." "I'll keep it short," Paul said, glancing at his phone. "I'm tight on time. I'll make a quick speech, lay out our vision, welcome them officially to Dempsey Group, and then I'm gone. You decide who stays, Albert. That part's on you. But they need to hear from me that they're part of something bigger now." He scrolled through his messages. "I've got a meeting at Dempsey HQ this afternoon, so let's make this quick." As Paul, Albert, and the other 4 executives walked toward the conference room, the 10-person Veritas team waiting inside was murmuring among themselves. Pamela sat fidgeting with the pen in front of her, her voice tight with nerves. "These mergers are always stressful. I went through one at my last job. New hires are usually the first to go. Honestly, I'm a little on edge. How about you, Vera?" Vera was focused on the file in front of her, scanning each line with purpose. She lowered her glasses to the tip of her nose and glanced at Pamela. "Maybe a little, but I'm mostly preparing to make the case for why they need us. I'm trying not to dwell on the rest." Veritas COE Brian looked relaxed as he sipped his coffee. "Ladies, take a breath. The value you both bring is obvious. Vera, your work over the past 4 years has taken our systems and operations to the next level. That's what they need to hear. Let's go in there as a united front. Texlo needs to understand exactly who they're dealing with." When the conference room doors opened, the room fell instantly silent. Every head turned toward the line of suits walking in. Albert led the way, followed by Paul and the Dempsey Group executives, their steps steady and deliberate. Vera glanced up, her eyes landing first on Albert, then on the man right behind him, and just like that, time stopped. Paul, sharp suit, sharper jawline, jet black tailored perfection. As he glanced down at his phone and then lifted his gaze, his eyes locked with hers. And for a fraction of a second his expression changed. Barely. But Vera saw it. Those eyes, that face, how could she forget? And clearly, he hadn't. That night, the way he'd looked at her, touched her, her first time, and the man who ever gave her. More than she even knew she needed. Paul's eyes froze on her for a beat too long, but then, in the blink of an eye, it was gone. His expression reset, polished, unreadable, the CEO mask firmly back in place. He walked forward with quiet authority and took the seat at the head of the table. Everyone had risen to their feet, including Vera. Albert broke the silence. "Everyone, I'd like to introduce someone joining us today, Paul Dempsey, CEO of Dempsey Group. What most of you probably don't know is that Texlo is actually part of the Dempsey Group family. We've kept that out of the public eye for strategic reasons. Now that the Veritas acquisition is official, Paul wanted to speak with you directly about the spirit behind this merger and what lies ahead." Paul stood up, adjusting his jacket with quiet confidence. Across the table, Vera tried to steady her trembling hands. It felt like everyone in the room could hear her heartbeat. Slowly, she lifted her head and looked at the man now standing at the head of the table. His voice filled the room. And, with it, something cracked open inside her chest, something she'd sealed off long ago. Paul began to speak, calm, clear, and cool-headed. "First of all, let me say this. No one here is at risk. Your jobs are safe. Veritas's achievements, especially in automation and process optimization, are exactly why this merger happened, and the team behind that success is sitting right in front of me." He paused, just for a beat. Then his eyes found Vera, and for a fleeting second, something unreadable flickered in his eyes. In this next chapter, we're moving toward a leaner, faster, data-driven structure. We need a core team to drive that shift, and I believe that team is right here. He gave a short nod, then took his seat. Veritas CEO Brian O'Neill picked it up from there. After a few words praising the Veritas team, he added, "And now, I'd like to turn it over to Vera Evans, who will walk us through the key improvements made in systems and process strategy." Paul shifted in his seat. His gaze stayed on her, steady, unreadable. Vera paused for a moment. She pressed both hands against the table for balance before slowly rising to her feet. She closed the file in her hand, took off her glasses, closed her eyes for a second, drew in a deep breath. Across the room, Paul's eyes dropped to the glasses, now resting on the table. A subtle smile tugged at the corner of his lips. That morning, when Jasmine had slipped out of his suite wearing nothing but his jacket, those exact glasses had been in the pocket, and now this woman, standing across from him, was wearing those same metal frames. Vera caught his glance, just for a second. She knew he'd noticed. Her stomach tightened, her pulse kicked up, their eyes locked, and silence rippled through the room like a current. Paul couldn't look away. Her long, dark hair, the softness of her skin, her scent, the quiet intensity in her eyes, it all came rushing back, and that black blazer over her fitted dress. For a split second, it wasn't Vera standing there. It was Jasmine, in his hotel suite, wearing nothing but his jacket, eyes wide, lips trembling. The memory hit him like a punch to the chest. Vera swallowed and began to speak. "Hello, I'm Vera Evans. I'm an industrial engineer, head of the Process and Systems Improvement Department. When I joined the company 4 years ago, the production line was a mess. Chaotic workflows, inefficient systems, and outdated processes that dragged people down. Today, with the real-time tracking system we've implemented across 3 facilities and our AI-supported planning module, we've cut our error rate from 11% to just 2%. The moment she started talking shop, Vera seemed to steady herself. Her voice carried more strength, her gaze sharpened, but somewhere deep inside she was still shaking. She continued, "As Veritas, we didn't just work with data, we worked with people. For every improvement decision, I sat down one-on-one with someone working that production line. This company's value isn't measured by spreadsheets alone. It's defined by rhythm, by harmony, by the motivation of the people inside it. That's why we didn't just improve processes, we improved the soul." Her words echoed in the room. Paul shifted slightly in his seat. His brow tightened, just a flicker, and he pressed a corner of his file between his fingers, folding it sharply. Albert jumped in, sensing the tension. "Thank you, Vera. That was a very compelling presentation, but I get the feeling Paul might not fully agree with that last line." Paul turned to Vera with a slight smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. "Processes serve people, sure, but not their emotions. A good system should survive even when people leave it or fall apart." His words landed like a quiet blow. Vera's expression didn't change. She didn't flinch. Her hands rested on the table, steady. She met his gaze directly, her voice smooth but resolute. "But when people believe the system belongs to them, when they're more than just replaceable parts, that's when the system becomes unbreakable." The room froze. Even the hum of the AC felt louder. Paul didn't respond immediately, just lowered his eyes to the notes in front of him. Then the faintest curve of a smile passed over his lips. Not amusement, recognition. The Jasmine he once knew? She wasn't sitting across from him anymore. Silence. A beat too long. Paul leaned back slightly, tilted his head like he was examining her. "Spoken like someone who's been on the floor," he said coolly. "Respectable. But let's hope that heart doesn't get in the way when hard decisions come knocking." He turned to the others with practiced ease. "Let's move on." Vera's eyes welled up for a second, but she held her posture. As she sat back down, Pamela gently touched her shoulder. "Hey, it's okay, Vera. Just breathe," she whispered. Vera nodded, but all she could think was, "I can't." That man had just stood in front of her, and he looked nothing like the one who had changed her life 5 years ago. When the meeting ended, Albert approached Paul. "You're going to make your flight, right? I thought the timing was tight." Paul's eyes were still on the door Vera had just walked out of. "Change of plans. I'm staying." Albert raised an eyebrow. "Seriously? What about the New York meeting?" "It can wait," Paul said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I want Vera Evans in your office. 10 minutes. Albert hesitated. "Okay, sure. But may I ask what this is about?" Paul gathered his papers, slipping them into his briefcase. "Personal." He glanced at Albert. "I'll need the office for at least half an hour." As Vera left the conference room, her hands were visibly trembling. She walked briskly down the hallway, trying to steady her breathing. Pamela hurried after her. "Vera, honey, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. You're always the cool one in meetings like this. But back there, you were shaking like crazy. What happened?" I just need to use the restroom. I'll meet you downstairs," Vera said quickly, barely meeting Pamela's eyes. Pamela frowned as she watched her walk away, clearly thrown off. Vera hit the elevator button, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. That's when she heard footsteps behind her. "Vera," it was Albert's voice. She turned slowly. "Yes, sir. Paul Dempsey wants to see you. In my office. Right now." Vera's stomach twisted. "May I ask why?" Albert shrugged. He didn't say, "Just personal." He studied her for a second. "Do you two know each other?" "No," she answered too fast, too flatly. Albert gave her a curious look but let it go. "Don't worry, he probably just wants to talk about your systems work. Come on, better not keep the big boss waiting." Paul was seated in the chair by the window, framed by heavy wooden furniture, staring out with a clenched jaw and distant eyes. The room was too quiet, almost staged. A knock broke the stillness. He didn't turn. "Come in." The door clicked shut behind her. Vera stepped in and paused, frozen, just inside the room. She said nothing. Paul slowly turned his head, and when their eyes met, he stood. For a second, neither of them breathed. "Please, sit down." "I'd rather stand." His voice sharpened. "Sit!" The command made her flinch slightly. She obeyed, perching at the edge of the chair across from Albert's desk, trying to look composed, but her spine was rigid. Paul walked toward her, each step deliberate. He stopped just at the corner of the desk, his hands resting on the edge, knuckles white. 5 years. Vera blinked. "What?" His voice dropped, low and loaded. "I've been looking for you for 5 damn years." Vera's breath hitched. "I think you've mistaken me for someone else." Paul stepped closer. His stare burned through her. "Don't insult my intelligence." His voice wasn't raised, but it was dangerously calm. His eyes were narrowed, his eyebrows furrowed. Vera had never seen him like this. She nervously rubbed her hands together. "Are we really going to play this game?" "I'm not someone who plays games like this," Paul said. He sat in the chair directly across from her. "Look me in the eyes, Jasmine," Paul said, his voice low, tight, and burning with restrained anger. Vera swallowed hard and met Paul's gaze. Her lips trembled. The sight hit Paul like a punch to the gut, just like that first night. He leaned in closer, locking eyes with her. "You remember that night. You remember everything. The red room, VIP room 3, that black lace with the garter, and," he swallowed, "and everything. That happened after." Vera's face turned pale. Paul reached into his pocket and pulled out a thin gold bracelet. "I've been carrying this with me for 5 years. When Vera saw it, her eyes welled up. Her hand reached out, trembling. "Paul." "Why, Jasmine?" He paused. "Or is it Vera now? What's your real name, huh?" Paul's voice cracked, the pain surfacing. "Why? Did you disappear without leaving a single trace?" Jasmine stood up, stepping back. "Paul, please, this is a mistake. It's been 5 years. We both what, Jasmine?" Paul took a step closer, his tone sharper now, controlled but brimming. "We both moved on? Changed? Because I haven't. I'm still that man from that night." Jasmine's eyes glistened. Her hands were trembling. "You don't understand. That night, it changed everything for me." Paul's expression darkened, his jaw clenched. "Did I hurt you?" His voice dropped, low, almost broken. "Jasmine, you were..." Paul lowered his head, pressing a fist to his mouth like he was trying to stop the words from coming out. "I was your first time, and I thought you wanted it. You said you did. Did you regret it?" He took another step. "Because I fell for you, Jasmine? Hard. I looked for you, for months, years." He searched her face, eyes wild with pain. "And now you show up out of nowhere calling yourself Vera, looking me in the eye like I'm the one who imagined it all." Paul reached out and caught her wrist, not to restrain, but to keep her from vanishing again. His grip was firm, but his hand trembled. "What changed that night, Jasmine?" His voice was a whisper now, not demanding, pleading. "Tell me the truth." Jasmine's chest rose and fell with shallow, quick breaths, tears in her eyes, lips slightly parted. Paul swallowed hard and stepped back. He let go of her wrist. He had to. Then he turned toward the window, his hand raking through his hair as he tried to steady his breath. "How's your brother?" he asked, his voice quieter now. Jasmine wiped a tear from her cheek with the back of her hand. "He's doing really well. Thanks to you. He has a good life. I'm grateful, Paul. I really am." Paul let out a bitter, breathy laugh. His jaw clenched. "Grateful." He turned his head slightly, eyes still fixed on the window. "And this is how you thank me?" Jasmine's mouth opened, like she wanted to explain, needed to. But no sound came out. She couldn't let it out. Not yet. She took a deep breath, steadied herself. "Mr. Dempsey, my team is waiting for me downstairs. I'd like your permission to leave the room." Paul didn't look at her, just nodded. "Go ahead. Vera Evans, because clearly you're not the girl I met 5 years ago." Jasmine turned away, her body shaking with sobs as the tears finally spilled over. She reached for the door, opened it, then paused. Without turning around, her voice broke through the silence, fragile but firm. "My name is Jasmine Vera Evans," she said, her back still to him. "Only the people closest to me call me Jasmine. To everyone else, I'm Vera." And with that, she stepped out, leaving Paul standing alone, caught between the past and the woman he just realized he never really stopped loving. Paul stood frozen, staring at the door Jasmine had just rushed through. There was something she wasn't telling him. He felt it. That night, he hadn't imagined it. He'd seen it in her eyes, felt it in the way her body moved with his. She had wanted him. He had felt her feelings all the way down in his chest, like a drumbeat he never forgot. He ran a hand down his face, trying to make sense of it all. Just then, Albert walked in, glancing around awkwardly at the heavy air left behind. "Everything all right, Paul?" Paul turned to him, his voice low, steady, but burning with urgency. "Albert, email me everything we have on Jasmine Vera Evans, every file, every detail. I want to know everything about her." He didn't wait for a response. He was already moving, out the door, down the hall, out of the building. As he made his way toward the hotel, one thing rang loud and clear in his mind. This wasn't over. He had found her again, after all these years, and there was no way in hell he was letting her disappear this time. Later, in his hotel room, Paul stood by the window, a glass of whiskey in hand. The city lights flickered below, casting reflections across the glass. Then, the soft blue glow of his phone lit up the room. An email. Jasmine Vera Evans' HR file had just arrived. He scrolled through it slowly. Phone number, home address, marital status, single. Paul let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding, but that didn't mean there wasn't someone in her life. His thoughts were spinning. He had a flight to New York in the morning. But how could he possibly focus on anything else when his mind was still stuck here, with her? He didn't think twice. He grabbed his coat, rushed downstairs, and got into the first cab he could find. "This address," he told the driver, reading it off his screen. Meanwhile, across town, Jasmine sat in her small but cozy apartment not far from the city center. A mug of tea warmed her hands as she stared out the window, watching the city lights flicker across the skyline. She was still trying to process the emotional storm that had hit her today. Paul Dempsey. After all these years, after that night, she had spent years clutching his jacket like a lifeline, breathing in the last traces of his scent. His old glasses had become hers, a quiet, constant reminder she never let go of. Rehearsing, over and over, how she'd tell him the truth. But the courage never came. Sometimes she'd stumble across his interviews online. She'd even saved a few short clips to her desktop. tiny pieces of him she couldn't bring herself to delete. For 5 years, remembering him had been a quiet ache in her chest every night. And now, suddenly, he was real again, standing right in front of her. She had let no one else in, not even close. Her life was her job, and her little girl. That was it. That was everything. Jasmine was lost in thought, her eyes still wet with tears, when a sudden knock at the door made her flinch. She opened it, and there he was, Paul. One hand braced against the doorframe, staring at her with an intensity that made her heart skip. His eyes were colder now, sharp, unreadable. She had never seen him look at her like that before. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then, his voice, low and steady, cut through the silence. "Aren't you going to let me in, Jasmine? Or, are you not alone? Are you living with someone?" There was tension in every word, barely hidden but impossible to miss. He was bracing himself for an answer he didn't want to hear. Her gaze dropped for a second. She stepped aside, not in welcome, but out of quiet hesitation. Her lips parted as if to speak, but nothing came at first. Then, barely a whisper, "Come in." Paul didn't move. He watched her closely, the stiffness in her shoulders, the way her fingers gripped the doorknob a moment too long, how she wasn't meeting his eyes. His jaw tightened. Then, flatly, he asked, "Is there someone in your life?" Jasmine blinked. A beat passed. Then she gave a small shake of her head. Once, then again. "No. There's no one in my life." Her voice was quiet, but sure. And then her eyes met his, wide, vulnerable, still holding something back, but open in a way that pulled him in. For a moment, Paul just looked at her. Something in his gaze softened, like he was seeing the girl he once knew, if only for a second. He just stepped inside, slowly, eyes still on her. "It smells amazing in here." Jasmine, still glassy-eyed, gave a small nod. "I just baked a carrot walnut cake." Paul let out a soft breath, almost a laugh. "That's such a you thing to do." He smiled, and something in his expression shifted, gentler, quieter, familiar. He tilted his head slightly, then stepped closer. His eyes drifted over her, white t-shirt, soft sweatpants, hair loosely tied up, like a version of her he hadn't let himself imagine in years. Jasmine blinked and tears welled again. Paul reached up, brushed a thumb against her cheek. His hand lingered, then moved lower, hovering near her chin, her lips. "You look just like you did back then," he said quietly. "But in that boardroom, you were different, sharp, closed off, like I couldn't reach you." His voice dropped further, barely above a whisper. "But now I recognize you." He leaned in slowly, his breath grazing her neck. "I still remember your scent." Jasmine's hand rose, almost instinctively. Fingertips brushed against his wrist, just holding. Her voice was soft. "Paul, wait. I'm not leaving until I know why." Jasmine said nothing. Paul's voice was steady, but his eyes, they burned. "We were only together one night, but before the sun came up, I started imagining a different life, one where you were in it." He paused. Something flickered in his expression. Grief, maybe, or regret. "You made me feel things I didn't even know I could feel, and when I lost you, when I couldn't find you..." His jaw clenched. "It wrecked me. I shut down. Other women didn't matter. Nothing felt real after you." He looked up, straight into her eyes, unguarded, aching. "Do you understand what I'm saying to you?" Paul took a slow step forward. Jasmine backed away without realizing, until her back met the wall. He followed. Not forceful, just close. His presence wrapped around her like heat. He lifted his hand and placed it gently over her chest, felt the rhythm beneath his palm. "You're nervous," he murmured. Then softer, "You still feel something?" "I know you do." I can feel it, Jasmine, under my palm. His hand stayed on her chest, steady but firm. Her heartbeat was fast. He felt it, he knew, and then he didn't wait. Paul leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't gentle, it was hungry, like he'd been starving for this moment. Jasmine froze for a second, her back against the wall. Her head told her to stop, but her body didn't move away. Her hands went to his chest, like she might push him off, but instead they clutched his shirt. She pulled him closer. He spoke between kisses, his voice low and rough. That night, you were mine, and no matter what's happened since, you still are. Jasmine closed her eyes. She kissed him back, harder, like she was tired of fighting it. Paul pressed his body against hers, every inch of him close. He rested his forehead against hers for a second, breathing hard. Then came the words, quiet, straight from the center of him. I would have never let you go. So tell me, why did you leave? Jasmine turned her head just slightly, her hands pressed against Paul's chest, not forcefully but enough to stop him, enough to say, not yet. She didn't meet his eyes. Paul, her chest rose and fell unevenly. That morning, I went to the hospital. My brother, he needed emergency surgery. We didn't have time. Paul stayed still, listening. I got the money there in time. They took him in right away. She swallowed, her voice beginning to shake. But there were complications. He didn't wake up. Not for days. I stayed. I couldn't leave him, Paul. I slept by his side for 5 nights. Now she looked up, just for a second. On the 5th day, he finally opened his eyes. He was okay. And I thought, okay, now I can find you. I should find you. A pause. Her hands slowly dropped from his chest. Her voice was like a whisper. But then I remembered. You had told me you were flying to Singapore for work in 3 days, and you'd be gone for a month. She shook her head slightly, and I realized you were already gone. She looked down again, more to hide her face than to think. I found your company online. I even got the address. 2 months later, I stood outside one morning, just staring at the building. A nervous laugh escaped, half choked. I was going to go in, but then all these thoughts hit me. Her voice cracked. What if that night didn't mean anything to you? What if I was just someone who got too attached? You were so powerful, so far out of reach, and God, I didn't want you to feel obligated. Like you had to care just because we made love. Just because, she breathed in, shaky, uneven. Just because Paul blinked. His expression shifted, subtle but sharp, a question forming in his eyes. You got what, Jasmine? She opened her mouth to answer. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Instead, her gaze dropped. Her throat tightened. But before Jasmine could finish her sentence, a small voice floated in from near the hallway. Soft, sleepy, fragile. Mommy, I had a bad dream. Paul's head snapped toward the sound. His eyes widened, confused, stunned, unblinking. There, just outside the hallway, stood a little girl. Light brown hair, messy from sleep. Soft pink pajamas with little bunnies. A worn teddy bear clutched tight in her arms. She rubbed her eyes, squinting into the room. Jasmine turned instantly, her voice softened into instinct. It's okay, sweetheart. Mommy's here. Nothing to be scared of. She rushed over and scooped the girl up, settling with her onto the couch, held her close, rocked her gently, kissed her forehead, ran her fingers through that sleepy hair. Paul didn't move, didn't breathe. His hand came up to his forehead slow, like he needed something to hold on to. His back found the wall behind him, steadying, but his eyes never left them. He stared and stared. He watched Jasmine comfort the child, and the child leaning into her, safe, loved. And then the girl looked up at him. Her eyes weren't like Jasmine's, they weren't dark. They were green, his green, and her hair, that soft, sunlit chestnut, his color. Paul's gaze shifted to the far corner of the room, a toy box, a half-finished puzzle on a little table, a storybook left open on the coffee table, and beside it, resting neatly on top, a tiny pair of glasses, pink-framed, just the right size for a child. Paul walked over slowly and sat beside Jasmine, careful, as if the moment might shatter if he moved too fast. He looked at the little girl curled against her mother and smiled softly. "Hi there." "Hi," she replied, her voice still thick with sleep. Paul nodded toward the pink glasses. "Are those yours?" She nodded. "Yeah. I can't see the pictures in my books without them." Jasmine turned her head to him. Her eyes glistened, silent tears. She gave him a slow, barely there nod. "Yes." Paul inhaled sharply, his whole body tensed, goosebumps rippling across his skin. His voice was shaky now, thick with something deeper. "I have glasses too," he said. He reached into his pocket, pulled them out, and slipped them on. "I can't read anything without mine either." The little girl smiled, and it was the kind of smile that could undo a man. The kind that came from somewhere pure, honest, unfiltered. Paul reached out and gently brushed her hair, his fingers trembling as they passed over her curls. Then he noticed it, a slim, delicate bracelet on her wrist, a name engraved on the tiny silver plate. "Daisy," he whispered, touching the charm lightly. "That's a beautiful name." He looked at her, his voice soft. "You're such a sweet girl, Daisy." He glanced over at Jasmine, then back to the child. "What if your mum and I took you to the park tomorrow? Would you like that?" Daisy's eyes lit up. She nodded excitedly. "Okay," Paul smiled. "And maybe, after that, we get some ice cream. Deal?" Daisy giggled. "Mommy, I'm hungry," she said, turning to Jasmine. "I knew you would be, sweetheart," Jasmine replied with a soft smile. "That's why I made your favorite cake." She stood up and walked into the kitchen, pulling out a plate and a knife. As she moved, Daisy reached over and took Paul's hand in her tiny fingers. "Do you want some cake too?" Paul swallowed hard, his throat tight. There was no hiding the glassiness in his eyes now. This little girl, this sweet, bright, bunny-pajamaed little soul, was him, a tiny, beautiful copy. His daughter. He pulled her gently into his arms, lifting her onto his lap. She nestled in easily, as if she'd done it 100 times before. He kissed her cheek. She smelled just like jasmine. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came. The words were stuck somewhere behind his heart. A moment later, Daisy slid off his lap and skipped over to the coffee table where Jasmine had just set the plate down. She slipped on her pink glasses, picked up a fork, and started happily eating her cake while flipping through her picture book. Jasmine returned quietly, settling beside Paul on the couch. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Paul swallowed hard, his eyes still locked on Daisy. His voice came out low, barely a whisper. She's beautiful, Jasmine." Jasmine gave a bittersweet smile, her eyes glistening. "She looks a lot like you, doesn't she?" Paul turned to her slowly. His jaw tightened, not in anger, but in pain. His gaze, heavy, aching, searched hers. "How could you not tell me? How could you let me think I only lost you when I lost her too?" His voice cracked now, every word cutting deeper. "I wanted to be there, for you, for her. I wanted to be by your side while you were pregnant. I wanted to be in that room when she came into the world. I wanted to hold her the moment she took her first breath." He looked down, blinking back tears. "I wanted to live every moment with her, and I missed them all." He looked back at Jasmine. "Why?" Jasmine wiped a tear from her cheek, breathing in slowly. "That night, you told me about your dreams, your plans, your vision. You were going to move to Singapore. You had everything mapped out, focused, driven, unstoppable. She paused, her voice barely held together. And the last thing you needed was a baby from a one-night stand. That's what I told myself. So I made a choice. She looked him in the eyes now, steady, devastated. It was the hardest decision I've ever made, and I hate myself because of it. I should have had a say too. Paul's voice trembled as he reached out, cupping Jasmine's face in both hands. If I had known, Jasmine, my choice would have been you and our daughter. His eyes searched hers, fierce, unwavering, full of promise. From this moment on, I'm not letting you go. Not even for a second. I'm not letting either of you out of my sight. Do you hear me? He paused, breath catching. We're going to make up for lost time. He leaned in, his lips meeting hers. Soft, aching, real. Suddenly, clap, clap, clap. Tiny hands smacked together in delight. "Mommy!" Daisy giggled. "That's a real kiss, isn't it?" Paul pulled back, laughing, eyes shining. Daisy wriggled out of her mother's arms and squinted up at him suspiciously. "Wait, only daddies kiss mommies like that. Are you my daddy?" Paul nodded slowly, emotion tightening in his chest. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm your daddy." He smiled through the tears building in his eyes. "And from now on, I'm taking you to school and to the park after. Would you like that?" Without a word, Daisy launched herself into his arms, wrapping her little arms tightly around his neck. Paul held her close. His daughter. His world. Over her shoulder, his eyes met Jasmine's. And in that quiet, breathless moment, he understood something he'd never quite known before. He hadn't just found his love, his daughter. He'd found home. 1 year later, in their spacious Manhattan apartment, Daisy was on the floor, building a castle out of Legos. Jasmine had just come home from work and collapsed onto the couch beside Paul. "How was your day?" Paul asked, gently massaging her shoulder. "Fantastic," Jasmine said, placing a kiss on his lips. "The new project got approved. What about you?" "Daisy tried to teach me math," Paul replied with a mock sigh. "She's 5 and already better at addition than I am." Daisy looked up, eyes wide. "Daddy, remember you said you're coming to school tomorrow." "I won't forget, Princess." Just then, Jasmine returned from the bedroom holding a small ribbon-wrapped box. She sat next to Paul and placed it in his lap. Paul squinted, tilting his head with a smirk. "Mrs. Dempsey, it's not our anniversary, and it's not my birthday, but this definitely looks like a present." Jasmine smiled slyly. "It is, sweetheart." She placed the box into his hands. Paul unwrapped it curiously, then froze. Inside was a folded ultrasound photo. His breath hitched. "God, Jasmine, you are?" Tears welled in her eyes as she nodded. "Yes, Paul. I had the test today. I'm already 2 months along." Paul cupped her face in his hands, overwhelmed. "You're unbelievable. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." Suddenly, Daisy appeared beside them. She peeked into the box, eyes squinting at the picture. "Is that a baby?" clapping her hands. "I'm getting a baby brother or sister?" Jasmine nodded. Paul grinned. "Yes, Princess, you'll have a little sibling very soon." Daisy lowered her pink glasses and raised one eyebrow. "Is it 'cause you kissed again? 'Cause if I get a baby every time you two do that, we're gonna need a way bigger house." Paul and Jasmine stared at each other, stunned. "Daisy, where did you hear that?" Jasmine asked, blinking in disbelief. Daisy shrugged. "Come on, Mom. Everyone knows. YouTube explains everything." They turned to each other in perfect sync. Parental lock. As Paul slid on his glasses and lunged for Daisy's tablet. Laughter echoed through the room, and with the warm evening light spilling in, their home wasn't just full of love. It was full of everything they never knew they were missing. Thank you for staying till the end. Where in the world are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel, and if this story moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe. It means the world to me.